Friends, I have my good friend Boh Guerra back on the show, who's just woken up. So we're going to warm up ourselves, and we're going to warm up the conversation as we go through. But it's really nice to have you here, man. And we're going to be talking about the intersection, and I've forgotten the second part now. Now I'm going to need to enlist your help. What was the second word?
Distinction.
And distinctions
Yeah.
between spirituality and religion, and it's a really interesting theme and topic because I think for some people they kind of see them as the same, for some people they're seen as distinctly separate, for other people, and of course we're going to be talking about forms in terms of the words that we're using, and so we're going to do our best to kind of I guess bring to life all of that stuff, what we mean by that, in service of talking about what it means to have a formless um practice, if that word is the
Mm.
right word in this, even in this situation. But yeah, anything to share before we kind of just have this conversation and see where we end up?
I don't know. I mean, there's a whole wealth of both what's available in that exploration,
Hmm.
as well as like what can come up for us. And I think that that's both are just as useful because when exploring any kind of concept or theme, we inevitably bring all our experiences and interpretations along with our, that's what informs our lens.
Sure.
And so I think acknowledging both can be interesting.
Yeah, 100%. I One of the ways that I've often spoken about this theme, and I do this in some of my groups as well, is pointing towards, for me anyway, and it is always this is just kind of like my how I see it, how it's,
Mm.
but spirituality to me points towards that which is before and beyond any form. So, I often say that for me, I literally say it's not about the forms of spirituality or religion. It's not about ceremony. It's not about candles. It's not about yoga. It's not about church. It's not about prayer. It's not about any of the things that we could talk about in form, as wonderful as those things can be. And it's not for a second saying this isn't saying that we can't do those things or nothing's or any of that, but it's what is it that unites everything in its essence. And my understanding of the word spirituality or spiritual is its spiritus, like cosmic breath, or translation something around this, and it's the that which unites us. Um, and of course, as soon as we even start using any word, even the word spiritual is one word too many, to point to
Mhm.
it's we're doomed to fail from the start because we're only ever going to be using labels to point at something that's before and beyond it, even those words. But yeah, that's often a way that I've kind of framed it, and it seems to me that it's completely possible for somebody to have a very rich religious leaning or whatever it might be, and to kind of to be yearning for that, to touch that coming home, that inner knowing. And it can be totally possible for someone to have never been to church, never have not having grown up in a family that's religious in any sense, and to have a deep um, sense of connection in that way. Um, yeah, I don't know if that's a good starter for us, but that's something that I've often shared anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think what religion, spirituality, various forms of practice, what they, at their core, in their foundation, want to provide, you know, the one engaging in that form is a direct experience, a connection of reality, of what what is here, what life is. I think a kind of general definition of spirituality that I've come across is spirituality is it's something that pertains to our relationship to insert term here. So either the divine, reality, experience.
Hmm.
There's a whole kind of spectrum of what that can involve, what that can look like, and what the historical and cultural expressions and interpretations of that relationship um, can be uh, described as. But it ultimately comes to looking inward and really exploring what what is felt and uh, what the concepts of a spiritual book, a sacred text, a form can how that can inform or guide the way that we're exploring our felt experience, exploring our relationship with life, with ourself, with reality, with experience. And uh, just speaking personally, I think part of what's made spirituality such a kind of exciting thing for me to explore and be involved with and kind of help people along within is that it really just comes back again and again to our experience of being human. For
Yeah.
me, it's really um, just a doorway to explore all those aspects of existing at all that are nourishing, that um, are inclusive of every color um, of experience that we encounter, every emotion, every phase of human development, and um, it kind of because it focuses on our relationship to ourself and life, it kind of allows for a really comprehensive way of understanding and engaging with our own experience that other areas uh, I don't think do as directly. Um, but another description of what the difference between religion and spirituality is that I often hear is this: spirituality is the internal dimension of religion, whereas religion is the
Mm.
exoteric, the outside. Um, and so, no matter what we're no matter what we're saying, no matter how we're talking about it, there's always different angles of how to explore. But I find that they all land in the same ground. They all come to the same ineffable heart of ourself, of experience, of what it means to be human.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that made sense. I
It
am
made, yeah,
still so sleepy.
it's all good, man. It's all good. That's the wisdom and intelligence behind life. Are you a coffee person? I
Yes.
There you go. The wisdom and intelligence behind life create caffeine. There we go. I Yeah, I love that, man. And like the one of the metaphors I've sometimes used is of if religion is kind of the clothing, it's and as Ramdas said, we're all God in drag. It's kind of like it
Mhm.
doesn't really matter what clothing that you go for. It's pointing back to that same unique source. Now, I'm not saying for a second that everybody believes that. the world
Mm,
of form, just kind of making a, just putting it out there softly to people that that is actually what's going on, is that everything is pointing within. And that's an interesting thing, because it's I know from many people listening to this will know that I share an understanding that's very often known, spoken about as the inside out understanding. And one of the first innocent misunderstandings that creeps in is inside outside, as in this distinction between inside the body, outside the body. And of course, people may have been used to practicing and meditating with their eyes closed and kind of bringing attention to the breath, and I can see why this kind of distinction might appear for people. But Sid Banks, he was very clear that inside was another pointer for formless, the formless dimension, and that outside is the world of form. So it wasn't, this distinction wasn't what a lot of people conceptualize it as being. It was far more all encompassing. And I don't know, words fail me as to what was being pointed to. But yeah, and I think that that element of direct experience, um, it's funny because in a way, when we're not in the narrator, when we're not kind of identified with our thoughts and thinking, and we're not kind of up there in concepts and all this stuff, we're here, we are, and things are appearing, and we're not making them appear. They're just kind of appearing within us as us, and there's that direct experience. And it can be very easy to kind of overcomplicate and divide and make it something kind of exotic and hard to access. And I think potentially, I think, across the board, not just in religious groups, but in spiritual groups and all across the board, as soon as it becomes this esoteric,
mm,
difficult to access thing that's going to take you 45 years in an ashram if you're lucky to access, and all this kind of stuff, it's well, there's a world, that there's worlds within worlds within worlds of analysis and judgment and conceptualization there. And part of what I'd love to do is, where however people come to a conversation like this one, Bo, like, it's just with all my heart, I would just love for those who can hear it to catch sight of just how simple this is. Not trivial by any means.
mm,
Like, this is not trivial, but the beauty and the ordinariness of what we're pointing to here is that, whether we wake up to this or not, to use another metaphor, is ultimately, I think I've read you right a good few times, Joe. Wakefulness is all there is. There is no other game in town. So it's like, whether
mm,
whether the veil is lifted in the appearance or not, it doesn't ultimately make a difference. Although for those of us who do see this, or they see what's being pointed to, we see what's being pointed to. It often comes with a sense of just contentment, and
mm,
just brings a simple way of living it that potentially wasn't there before. And I know for both of us, it's been at the core of, recovery or whatever, from addictions and different kind of things that have appeared in the world of form based on misunderstanding. Um, if any of that makes sense, I feel like saying, now you have to let me know whether what I just shared makes sense. But
yeah, no,
yeah.
exactly. I think that I mean that just demonstrates the to me in hearing what you've just shared, it connects us back to this framing of exploring our relationship with reality or with ourself or with experience, just our relationship. Because through exploring the kind of ineffable heart of what spirituality, what religion can allow us to discover in the immediacy of right now, right here, what can change is not what's here, but our relationship to what's here. And it's not that there's a gaining of an experience or a gaining of knowledge from one angle. It can appear that way, but from another, it's really the putting down of a lens, the dissolution of
Mm.
a particular way of relating to reality, to experience, to spirit, to the divine, um, that allows kind of these qualities of peace and contentment and um, quiet joy, fulfillment to permeate experience more and more. Um, and it's not to say that the reason why I initially emphasized that it doesn't mean that what's here changes is because there have been many, many times where I've encountered very difficult emotional experiences or challenging movements of everyday life. And like that still happens because we're human. I mean, that's part of the human experience. That doesn't change. But what can change, and what I think forms like religion and spirituality can point us to, can direct us towards, is this really honoring what's here without meaning anything about us. Um, and it's that can that changes the flavor of something like grief or pain or frustration or anxiety. That the energy itself doesn't change, but our experience of it can. And that can make, what seemed like a damning circumstance to be actually a fascinating experience. It doesn't mean that it feels great. Doesn't mean that we don't experience um, the challenges of being human. It just means that what in the absence of our opinions, right? There's no reason to resist what naturally occurs in life. And that makes all the difference in how it's experienced. Um, Ultimately, I think that because forms of religion and spirituality often are framed as ways of navigating life or ways of understanding and kind of these roadmaps, um, it can be helpful to see that what can be available is not necessarily like um, being involved in this, that, or the other means something about sometime in the future. Who knows? It might. I don't have that data, but what I can say is that these forms and roadmaps can lead us to the paper that the map is appearing on and can allow us to really embrace and find beauty in all of the intricate lines, all the terrain textures that are within and informed by the map of whatever form we're using. And that to me is the point, is this um, being able to live authentically, to be fully human, and that ends up um, looking like embracing all of it while not defining ourselves um,
Mhm.
by any of it. It's that quiet, ineffable, formless context that allows every movement of human experience to be celebrated, um, to be delighted in, to be respected. There's like this reverence, um, that can kind of inform whatever's arising. It's like the funny thing is that it's ordinary as well. It's because it's just what's here. Um,
Yeah, it's such a beautiful word, man. And I think again, it's funny. It's the order of things. Now, I think there's a podcast out there somewhere where I talk to, the assessment that a lot of people make of ordinary is kind of subpar, mediocre, less than, or something like that. It's not what we're pointing to. It's just this appearance, just this. Like it's ordinary because it's here, and ordinary in the way that trees are ordinary and babies are ordinary, and they're just these miracles that are just kind of appearing. And
mm,
so yeah, I think that's really, and I think actually, what is this part of us that would want to be special? Pure being, the wisdom and intelligence behind life is just fine. It's this kind of seeming appearance, this apparent separate self, which I know you alluded to this, Bo, but I think it's at the core of for me, it's such a core piece, I guess, of what we're both teaching is to see through the idea that there is a separate self here to which life is happening to,
mm,
versus appearances within consciousness as consciousness. It's such a difference in terms of, you know, I'm gonna have to use words here because otherwise we're just gonna sit in silence, which would be lovely. But to point to the experience where we're here, knowing that we're here, and noticing things that are appearing, and some of those may be comfortable and some of those may be uncomfortable, and some of those are the kind of things that we may label as a heart that's beating a bit faster or palms that might be sweaty. But before we've done that, whatever it is that's showing up is just showing up. It's not mine yet, it's not owned, it hasn't become Sam's pain or Sam's anxiety. It's not there, hammering against this person who's kind of at battle with it. It's just appearances. And without that, as I see it, without that kind of direct seeing, which is hiding under our very nose. That's
mm,
the funny thing about it is there it is all along, just waiting to be found, just hiding in plain sight. And but it brings such a richness into life. And I was just going to quickly, I don't know if I can, I think I'll be able to find it quickly because I was writing it just today. um but you were talking about just the richness in anything and everything that's showing up. um and I was writing today about a festival that I'd been to this weekend, and I'd just put here. And so that's what I'm gratefully aware of this cloudy British Monday morning. The real magic is the fact that we get to experience, full stop. Not what we get to experience, but the fact that we do. All the ups, all the downs, all the smiles, all the frowns are equal in the eyes of being. And I think there's such a richness that comes into life when we realize that. Um, and I don't know if you see it in this way, but I know there's traditions that talk about the distinction between pain and suffering, and I think different people may interpret that in different ways. But for me, I kind of see it that whatever is appearing here, even if it is painful, it's certainly it's in the moment where that becomes my pain or and at that point, then it becomes conceptual, if you like, and we can scare ourselves to with those things. We can I scared myself to death with the concept of spirituality for nigh on 20 years, and then one day I had the grace or the gift of waking up to what anxiety in air quotes is prior to me conceptualizing it and labeling it, and I realized it's not a problem in the way that I'd kind of set it out. And to me, that's what direct experiencing can do for all of us. Um, and I think, as much as I love all of the, I respect everybody's, of course, like, you know, whatever forms of religion or spirituality we happen to find ourselves engaging in or enjoying, it's that direct experience that's going to release people from that psychological suffering. Um, and so I think it's a very rich exploration for everybody, whether they deem themselves to be spiritual, atheist, whatever, you know, whatever they see themselves as, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with this exploring the distinction between suffering and pain, the way I tend to hold it is that suffering is the resistance
Hmm.
to what's arising. And that resistance takes the form of this is mine, this is in relationship to me,
Mm.
this is in reference to me, this is my life, this is my pain, my inconvenience. And the reason that that qualifies as resistance is that this lens of separation is a way that we, whatever that is, view what's here, view the divine reality, experience, spirit from this third party perspective
Hmm.
that we kind of are habituated into kind of depending upon to distance ourselves from experience because we've learned that that's what's safe,
Yeah.
that it's in holding on to this framing of me and other, this framing of I'm this separate self that life is happening to and for, that, you know, it's not framed mentally that way, but
Hmm.
when you really look close to it, it's that's what's there. Um, and really it only serves to the reason why that's safe is not because it's safe for us, but it's safe for that story.
Yeah.
It's safe for that lens. But we've taken ourselves to be that lens.
Hmm.
And so fortunately, you know, I think the beauty of forms like religion and spirituality and the variety and spectrum that that can express and be explored, um, it can provide us with these invitations, these opportunities of looking closer at that, seeing what's really there. Um, and just in my own exploration of different forms and paths over the years, um, I found that, you know, no matter what cultural or philosophical hub or foundation that a given form is arising out of, it has this same kind of essential aim or purpose. If you look closely enough, it's there. I think a lot of I think there's also a spectrum of how dualistically
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
a tradition expresses as and what it emphasizes versus others. And so, but I also see that as, you know, a way of traditions meeting people where they're at, as well as, you know, the cultural, political, sociological kind of influences and hindrances that any tradition kind of by virtue of being a human structure, um,
Yeah.
kind of adopts.
I'm smiling because I know we were talking earlier about how I'm very aware sometimes when I'm writing of someone could be wagging their finger at me and saying, "Oh, you've split yourself in two there." Like it's a very dualistic way to write it, and yet, it's all it's only the mind that's ever going to divide it that way. It's not actually happening. So it's an interesting thing, and I was smiling because I forget who I heard say it, but someone said, when I introduce myself to people, I don't kind of say, "Hey, I'm infinite intelligence." Dressed up as so I just say no, hi, I'm Sam, nice to meet you, and I
Mm-hmm.
tell people that I made decisions and I chose things, and all in the knowledge that these things are kind of in the appearance. But we live in a world where a lot of people are, well, everyone's where they are, like everyone's seeing what they're seeing, and everyone's doing what makes sense at their current level of understanding, and that's been true for me. And the only reason you and I find ourselves together, I mean, I sit here and think about how we have found ourselves having these conversations, Bo, and I still smile because I'm like, I have no idea how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Introductions through mutual friends, and it's just this ineffable, radiant unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I know that there are some people that if I've gone out for dinner, I kind of uh would be having a very different conversation with them to the one that I'm
Mm-hmm.
having with you right now, because I'm going to meet them where they are, and all that stuff, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and it's funny, like another thing I've often shared is that, this distinction that a lot of people make between, and this is kind of, I guess, parallel and kind of an interesting one, between spiritual and not spiritual, or God and not God. And I have written a fair bit about this, that of course outside of the mind, there is no division. There's no this way, that way. There's just this appearance, and the idea of good, bad, God, not God, spiritual, not spiritual, is made up. And so I'm often, often it's all spiritual. It's all spiritual, right? And I know someone says, well, how could it be? How could it, that guy coming round and, you know, knocking on my door and having a go at me because I accidentally parked the car three feet too close to his driveway or something. How's it? Tell me how that's spiritual, and it's because we're locked in the world of concept and division and all that stuff. And yeah, 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 I don't know if I've got much else to add, but that occurs to me as another thing that I think, another kind of dichotomy that people can get caught in.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. It,
and yeah,
it immediately reminded me of I want to see if I can quickly find it here.
yeah, go for it, man.
Um,
Bo is currently rifling through his wonderful book, which I'll get him to tell you the title of in a moment, so you can find
Thanks, Sam.
it.
Um, it's so the book is called An Easier, Softer Way: Daily Marinations for Non-Dual Recovery. I'm currently working on a version that is not recovery focused, but that's where
Well, thoroughly recommended, and a lot of people
yeah.
who listen to this will have like a background in alcohol-free stuff or recovery or however they relate to it. So yeah, I'll put the link in the show notes for you, man. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. Um, I I'm laughing because that the plug tendency was something that didn't occur to me until you
No,
brought
no,
it up.
and I don't
But
for a second, like, but I don't think the audience for a second. I didn't think it was. I just
okay,
thought it
good.
was lovely. It was me. I was the one stepping in and plugging on your behalf.
Oh,
so, so,
well, thank you, Sam.
so yeah, yeah.
So the um one of the kind of earlier uh, pages of the book, I have this kind of pointer um, that I've written here, and it directly connects to what Sam was just talking about this distinction between believing in God, not believing in God,
Mm,
seeing something as spiritual, not spiritual, um, and that really it's these excuse me, these differences that are only held conceptually,
Mm.
and it's kind of the freedom and resolution of that dissonance and frustration is found quite immediately when we let go of that.
Yeah.
So the section is called "The Gift of Unknowing," and it just says the divine is easier to believe in when the separate self that doubts the existence of the divine is itself seen to be non-existent. And so I just love that because it really challenges that starting point and invites the reader to look at that starting point to investigate where they're meeting experience from.
Yeah.
And that alone can be very powerful, I
Hmm.
found. um, because so much of the push and pull that we experience in life is based around this: what assumption are we leading from in our reaction or our response?
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and yeah, it's of course, given my background and the kind of orientation of the book and just my work, there is, of course, a leaning, a bias towards landing in this place of, well, it's all spirit, or it
Mm.
all has this um, beyond materialism conclusion or nature. But really, it's the what is this versus what is that? What is this all about? Those answers that the mind constantly seeks in all these kinds of philosophical and um, existential questions. A lot of that becomes unimportant um, when
Yeah.
we look just at closely at a relationship to what's here.
Yeah. Direct
Um,
experience, right?
but it's all included too. It's like I can have conversations with people from various maps. It's like you have, in seeing that no map can capture what's here, you that doesn't mean you just go into a cave and you're like, well, no maps. Just meditate on the mantra, no maps, no maps, no maps, no
Yeah.
maps. It's not it's not like that's what happens. It's more like we can use any map and enjoy what it uncovers about what's here. Well, we can enjoy the celebration of that mapness, um, of that form of where it directs attention and what quality, what attribute of life is uncovered in that exploration, without needing to hold on to it, not without needing to cling to that viewpoint, because it's not the view that's bad. It's not the view that's harmful. It's not the concept that's harmful. It's not the language that's harmful. It's the way that we hold it, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's the way that we relate to it. It's the attachment, um, the particular kind of urgency and taking ourselves very seriously that results from life is happening to me.
Yeah, that's it. And it's funny. I'm sort of smiling, both on the outside and the inside here, because I have a lot of dear friends who I've known for a long, long time, who I'm still dear friends. They're dear friends, and they are very, very fused to the idea that they have of themselves, and they take themselves very, very seriously and their judgments very seriously. And it's funny because a few of them, I think, have probably had a bit of a hang on a minute, what's going on here? I know what Sam's about. We've grown like, what the fuck's he up to with all of this spirituality nonsense? And it's opened some conversations, and some people have really just through that come to really have some powerful insights just from loosening up grip on so many of these ideas, and others have kind of dug their heels in, and there's conversations we have and don't have, and
Mm.
that's fine. Not that I have zero opinion as to whether people should. Hey, it's not my business whether people should what they come to see or not, or whether they spend, for those people who do spend their life in a cave or whatever. It's like, it's cool. It's all cool in the gang, and I was sat here smiling because I'm sure, not that I know Richard Dawkins, and I'm sure he won't be listening to this podcast, Bo, but if I had to smile because I remember reading The God Delusion years and years ago.
Mm.
And this was, I was just reading anything and everything, and I was interested to see his perspective. And I'm going to get all of the wording wrong, and all I can do is report what I was hit by when I read the beginning opening chapter. Somewhere in that opening chapter, he says something to the degree of, or this is what I read anyway. If by God we mean this infinite creative intelligence and the intricacy and the complexity and the beauty and everything that you can see and the source of that, and this just wondrous, magnificent thing that's happening, if that's what we mean by God, then call me a religious man. And I remember reading that and thinking, well, that's kind of what I'm pointing to. Like, I'm certainly not
Mm.
pointing to some guy sat on a cloud with a big white beard.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I mention that is because I think a lot of people who would kind of, probably describe themselves as hardcore scientists, or, all this kind of stuff, if they were to kind of loosen their grip in the way that we've been talking to here, and to kind of see beyond, and to just come into connection with direct experience. Um, Potentially, this is one of the kind of roots, one of the interesting things that mindfulness, in a
Mm.
secular way, has kind of potentially bridged a gap. It's kind of interesting because I think in the UK, if you were to kind of talk to people about spirituality, they would probably more naturally connect it to Eastern traditions and
Mm.
Buddhism and Hinduism. But I know, and I've had different answers from people out in the US as to, for some people it would be very much bound with Christianity, for some people it would be very much bound with. So it kind of really depends where you're from in the world as well. So
Mm.
to just be, I love what you said about just the freedom of not knowing. And for me, one of the greatest gifts that seems to have just appeared over the course of the last year or two in particular is just this, for lack of a better term, just this letting go of just needing to know anything beyond what's appearing right now. And the one thing that I can't negate or deny, which is that this is here.
Mm.
I can't, and that to me is real freedom. And in my early 20s, I spent however many thousands of hours exploring anything and everything, from crystal healing to reincarnate, all that kind of stuff. And it's not, and I often say to people when people ask me the question, I'm like, I've no idea. Like, in the appearance, I don't know what is and isn't possible. I don't know what people can or can't pick up on. Like, the things that I've seen, some insane things in my time, and had some conversations with people, and I can feel a huge amount of heart in how they're, where they're sharing from, and yet their experience isn't mine, and I'm open to kind of everything. And at the same time, being able to let go of all of that and just not knowing, and just kind of finding the safety in free falling, or
Mm.
it's freedom. um and I think that's, I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe for some people, that one of the reasons that they do find themselves feeling held in a religious setting or a spiritual setting or whatever setting is this form of comfort that it seems to bring in the world of form. And actually, for me, the most comforting thing has been for the whole bottom to fall out of everything. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I I agree with that. It's funny though because in my experience, we're always in this stance of using a map and letting go of it.
Hmm.
Every moment there's that just seamless, immediate, spontaneous arising and falling away of each second, each word, each way of viewing something
Mm.
and way of understanding something, way of talking about something. And so it's like not holding on to an idea, a particular framework of what's going on, what's here, what's this all about, can be freeing. And there's inevitably going to be some holding because without that, we wouldn't be able to navigate a conversation. We wouldn't be able to navigate getting on a Zoom call and, navigating the logistics of,
Mm.
putting something on YouTube or the podcast or all of that, because then nothing could be shared, nothing could be celebrated, right? It's like the it what I see is of this the kind of opportunity of this more disintegrative movement of letting go of a form is not that no form is ever used again, not that all forms are delusion
Yeah.
and irrelevant to truth, to reality. It's it's just it's more of a description of when I'm holding something, I'm not holding it with the same intensity, with the same dependency on the particular way that I'm holding it. Like it, it sounds a little abstract and kind of airy, but what I mean is really simple. Like I'm having a conversation right now, and there's not excess thought and understanding about how to articulate certain sentiments and use particular language, and all of that is just happening naturally. But yet there is a logic, a flow, a direction, a sequence, and that's happening spontaneously. And so
Yeah.
it's the, we get to have our cake and eat it too, right? It's like I think there's a lot of fear that can come up for people of, what does it mean to truly trust life, to
Mm.
surrender to what's arising, to let go of this lens and of separation.
Mhm.
And it's a lot simpler than what the mind makes it out to be,
Yeah,
because
you bet.
that's already happening. Like that's the beauty and gift of it, is that what's true is already always here. It's always the case. It's not like something needs to happen in order for that to be more apparent. It can seem that way linearly,
Mm.
but it's always just describing this. And that's where I think a lot of the beauty comes from in in seeing that actually what we're talking about, this balancing of looking at the intersections and distinctions of spirituality and religion. It's actually completely complementary to everything else about life, with science, physics, history. All of it is that it's this I lost the train of thought.
It's all good. It's all good. I'll hop in, and when it comes back, you can get back on the train. But I love it, man. I'm reminded of, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists.
Mm-hmm.
Um, opening line of A Course in Miracles, which
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
no shoot, go.
Just before I forget it again,
Yeah.
it's that, like, something that I've often compared this exploration of direct experience with is that really we're just touching into like what is gravity. It's that simple and foundational. Like there's nothing more empirical really than what we're doing, than this exploration. You can't get more empirical than this because it's just directly without all the lenses, without all the ideas, what's here, what's this, and what's aware of it, right? And so the there's nothing more foundational than reality, than life. And so all the kind of hindrances that we may encounter really just have to do with all our ideas about what this is and nothing about what's
Yeah.
actually here.
I was listening to what you just said there, and I love this because if you look at the definition of reality, it's the state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic or notional idea of them,
Mm.
or the state or quality of having existence or substance. Now, the thing I fucking love about that is this is the unchanging reality, real. Because I think a lot of people, Bo, when they listen, they'll be like, well, my reality's shit. My reality's full of bad, annoying jobs and partners that won't do as they're told and dogs that, do this and all the kind of stuff. That's my reality. So what are you on about? But, of course, we're talking to that which you can't go further upstream than this. This is the formless truth, the pre-existing facts, the, yeah, just this. And it's worth exploring. that's, that's the only thing that I could say. I read that opening line from A Course in Miracles that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. It's like the irony, both of us know we're having this conversation, and it's kind of like it's beautiful and it's I think I once heard Peter Brown, and different people point in different ways in that. But I once read Peter Brown. He'd written something like, "As I look around me, it feels, it's like everything is rich with meaning, but I have no idea what any of it means." And other people will say it's complete. It's not. There's no meaning or whatever. But I kind of liked that because it's that kind of got to the heart of it for me. It's like I can't. The one thing I can't negate is that I I exist. And I have no idea beyond the richness of this experience, whatever this is, and and so the conversations that we will have or won't have, and those people in our lives who kind of do or don't get something or hear something in this, there's, it ultimately doesn't matter, and yet, like here, we both feel called to do this, and it's a pleasure to be here doing it. There was something else as well that you mentioned as I was listening. I can't. It's not coming to me. It'll pop up in a moment. Um, but yeah, it's that direct experience that there's no hierarchy here. There's no hierarchy. One of the traps that I think can happen um, in is the mind will put whatever experience it is it thinks that we need to have before we can become insert your favorite word of choice, awakened, enlightened, liberated, free, whatever it might be, and it will create whatever concept that is, and then we can spend however long chasing that. um and of course these things that we hear about destroying the ego, and it's to me kind of metaphorical to kind of just see through it. Like, what, you can't destroy something that doesn't exist, like it's and so I think we come full circle at some point to the great kind of cosmic joke, and we have to laugh as we kind of realize, wow, well, that was how it was for however long. I needed to go barking up all of those trees, and for me it was, seeking hardcore for 15 years and trying out every kind of possible experience I could, and striving for mystical experiences and this thing and that thing, and reading every spiritual text and every religious text and all that stuff, only to come full circle and realize that, as I said earlier, it was just hiding right here. And where else could it be? Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. That's cool. Like, I feel like that was a really nice exploration. Do you feel like there's anything else that you feel called to share or add before we wrap up until the next time?
I guess the only thing I have to add is it's echoing what you just stated, but that the I think it when people are exploring their own truth, their own wisdom, their own natural orientation to whatever form, or just within life, like when people are exploring their experience on the day to day, in the mundane, in the profound, to remember, or I invite the consideration that maybe this as it is, however it's appearing, can be what I'm looking at, what I'm looking for too,
Mm.
right? Maybe it only seems like it's not because I'm holding an idea about it, perhaps an idea of myself. And the radiance of truth, the peaceful and loving ground of reality can be discovered in every moment, can be discovered in any experience. It's not dependent on gaining anything, achieving a state. It's as present and full as, the sound of my voice, or the shimmering of light through the trees in the morning, or the sound of a bird chirping, or somebody knocking over a bin, you know, and all this shit falling out.
Yeah.
Like, it can be found in absolutely any experience because it is the ground of all experience.
Mm.
And the more that we take refuge in that, the more that we rest our head there and drink from that water, uh, soothe our heart from that earth, we'll be able to just live in and as the miracle of this moment, the celebration of this, and just, really meet every experience with a thank you, with gratitude, with reverence, with a quiet joy.
Yeah. You put words to it, man. That's beautiful. And I'm so with you. I'm so with you. And I think it was Nisargadatta that said, just feels like nothing's wrong anymore. Even that, whatever it is that's appearing. And as you were talking, I was reminded, I think it's Sailor Bob who said, what's wrong with this moment until you think about it. I love that. I think that seems to be at the heart of what we were talking about here with direct experience. And I think you just beautifully encapsulated that. Uh, yeah. Well, dude, thanks for another amazing convo. It's always lovely to do this. It's really nice to
Yeah,
um,
it's wonderful to speak with you, Sam.
yeah, you too, Bo. I really appreciate the time, man. So until the next time, hey.